Now I request Dr. Uday Kumar J, Professor, Civil Engineering Department, to make the welcome speech.
Respected Chief Guest of the day, Professor Dr. Chetan Singh Solanki, Mr. Deepak, student friends, ladies and gentlemen. Today this session we are going to witness, I think, the first theme-based talk on the main theme of Conjura 11. It is on engineering innovations in empowering rural India. In 1935, at the All India Village Industries Association, the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, initiated a number of ventures with the help of a national advisory committee consisting of very eminent national personalities, including scientists like J.C. Bose, P.C. Ray, and C.V. Raman. Unfortunately, very little is known about the deliberations of this particular committee. We very clearly know that the efforts of this particular committee was actually marginalized by the mainstream science and technology establishments which emerged in the independent India. The efforts of these new institutions in the independent India, they were mainly focused on the problems of urban settlements, industry, and also the Union Government of India. They were not in favor of addressing the issues of rural India. It was actually in this particular backdrop, in 1970s, there emerged a number of national new initiatives to address the issues of rural India. The first and the foremost of all these is institutions like Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and also the IITs. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the apt person from Bombay IIT to speak on this particular issue, this particular problem. I'll be just going through the highlights of his profile. Dr. Chetan Singh Solanki is currently Associate Professor in the Department of Energy, Science and Engineering at IIT Bombay. He received his doctoral degree from IMEC, that is Inter-University Microelectronics Center, Catholic University Leuven, Belgium in 2004. His research areas of interest are silicon nanostructures for photovoltaic applications, thin film silicon solar cell, concentrated photovoltaic systems, carbon nanotubes, etc. Currently, he is working on projects sponsored by the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, and Department of Scientific and Industrial Research. He is recipient of European Material Research Society Young Scientist Award, IIT Bombay Young Investigator Award, and UGC Scholarship during his postgraduate and doctoral studies. He has delivered several invited talks and special lecture series on solar photovoltaics at both international and national levels. He has authored more than 40 publications in the reputed international and national journals and proceedings. Dr. Solanki also owns 3 US patents for his work on porous silicon for solar cell applications. He is also the author of a book entitled Renewable Energy Technology, a Practical Guide for Beginners, being published by the Prentice Hall of India.
Uday Kumar, Deepak, students, a very good morning to all of you. And first of all, I would like to thank TKM College of Engineering for inviting me here. And it is really my great pleasure to be in front with all of you, all of young people, and discuss about our rural India. So it is really my pleasure, and when I got this invitation, I little thought about it, but when I thought it's going to be about rural India and people, and the TKM College has set up its theme as a empowering innovation for empowering rural India. So it is really one of very interesting topic, and not only interesting, it is also very challenging. And therefore I accepted this invitation to come here, and it's really my pleasure to be in front of you. Talk about is not normally what I talk about. I do research in solar photovoltaics, wherein we are developing new technologies, we are trying new materials. We work with nanomaterials of the order of nanometer size. So we play with the materials at atomic level. We deposit nano crystals of 3 to 5 nanometer size, and 1 nanometer is 1×9 meter, okay, 1 billionth of a meter. And when we grow nanocrystals of 3 nanometer, 5 nanometer, normally we are actually controlling the growth of material in the range of few hundred atoms only, okay. So that is the kind of work that we do as a research. We also develop new solar cell technology to improve the efficiency. We also do new work to develop new kind of processes to reduce the cost of solar energy. But that is not what I'm going to talk today, because the topic or the theme is very different. So we are going to look at the empowering rural India, and what needs to be done to do that. As the theme of this conjurer is that it is innovation that is required for empowering rural India, but I have put a question mark there. So is it really innovation, or it's a motivation that is required to empower rural India? The reason I put a question mark there, that I'm also not sure whether it is just motivation or it is innovation that is required. But we should ask this question again at the end of the talk, and we should try to answer that, whether it is the innovation or the motivation that is required to empower the India. Right? You all ready for that? Okay, so ask me a question, or ask yourself the question at the end of the talk, what is required? And are we already equipped with that or not? Before we go further, I thought I should define what is the meaning of innovation. You know what is innovation? I also know, but I have also looked at the Oxford Dictionary before coming here. So the Oxford Dictionary says innovation is introduction of new things, new ideas, and new ways of doing something. So that is what is innovation, and motivation is a reason for doing something, okay? So for empowering India, which one of this is more important, or which one of this is required, or which one of this we have already right now, and which one is required? So that's what we are going to look at. Okay, fine. So before we go further, let us look at what are the. Can everybody see the slides? I am a little doubtful at the corner, back side. Can you see something little bit? Anyways, I'll try to read for you most of the things. So what you can see here is that the problems, or the top problems that is faced by the world, and typically the problem is about the water, energy, health, literacy, food, population, terrorism, corruption, security, genocide, etc. So these are the major problems that world is facing today. And when you list this item, you really get surprised that after so much of development, after so many millions of years of evolution on the earth, two of our most basic needs, that is food and water, it is still not satisfied. Isn't it amazing to have that problem still with us? even millions of years of existence on this earth, two of our basic needs, the food and water, is still not satisfied. So, and that is challenging. So that's why I wrote here that these two things we are still need to worry about. There is a large population there are large number of people, not only in India but around the world, in many developing countries, where the safe drinking water and the food is still a challenge, and we need to find a solution before we go to moon, right? We are also trying to go to the moon. We are also going to try to go to the Mars and other planets to explore what is there. But these two fundamental challenges are still with us, and we need to really worry about it and take care of it. So to solve this problem of food and water, do we really require innovation, or we require motivation? Again, I don't want any answer right now. We'll look at the answer at the end of this, but I'm just leaving with this question so that you think about it. But anyway, we don't want to bother about the world right now. We are only going to look at what happens in rural India. Okay, so I'm coming back to the rural India. So therefore, the contents of my talk today is characteristic of a rural India, what you see as a rural India, how it is different from the urban India. And there are two major problems that I'm working for, and I'm associated with it is the access to energy, that is important, and the education. Kerala, of course, is one of the most successful state to have a good quality education at the primary level, but all other states are not like that, and there still is one of the big concern. And eventually we'll come back to our main question. So when you look at the characteristic of a rural India, first of all, you find that in our country, more than 50%, up to 65-70% people live in rural India, still a very large percentage of population. Contrary to the number of the people that live there, the contribution in GDP, okay? Normally the contribution in GDP means their contribution in the earnings of India is only 20% or even less than 20%. So that is something we need to worry about. How come 65% people in India is only contributing to less than 20% income of the country? And what is the reason behind that? Other typical features of the rural area would be like lack of infrastructure, lack of education, lack of power, and the low per capita energy. If you look India in the numbers, rural India numbers, we have 5,90,000 villages in the country. There is about 700 million people. About 700 million people live in rural India. 260 million people are below poverty line. And the below poverty line is defined as anybody who is earning 550 rupees, to be precise, 554 rupees per month. So you can imagine what kind of living is possible with that kind of earning. There are 350 million people who are illiterate. 350 million, and we are talking about big numbers here, which is the largest portion or the number of people illiterate in any part of the world. There are 40% of the villages are not well connected in terms of the road. So you cannot reach those villages in all weather conditions. 28% villages do not have primary school, And many villages which have the primary school will have less than one teacher per class. As it says, 54% villages will have a hospital for more than 5 kilometers from their place where living. 318 million people do not have access to safe drinking water. So drinking water, such a basic need, is still a challenge. 650 million people do not have proper sanitation facility. 51% children under the age, I think about 10, are malnourished or undernourished. Again, one of the biggest kind of percentage that we have in the country. A rural economy grows only with 1.9% as compared to urban economy, which grows at much higher rate. What is the growth rate of urban economy or India's growth rate? GDP? Loud little please. About 8%, 9%. Okay, that our Prime Minister is saying again and again every day that this year we are going to grow with 8.5%, even 9%. Okay, while rural India grows only at 1.5%, 1.9%. Why so? And we cannot leave this situation alone for a long time because rural India is a big part of us. 60%, 65% people live in rural India. Therefore, they are going to affect our own lives in one way or other way. So we cannot leave that part. So yes, we have got the political freedom in 1947, but are we really free in terms of the economic freedom? Are we really free in terms of the diseases? Are we really free in terms of literacy or illiteracy? So if you look at the global perspective, or if you look at the perspective of becoming a developed country, we need to still acquire a freedom at the economic level. We need to still acquire a freedom at the literacy level. We need to still acquire the freedom at the diseases level and education level. So there is a lot of work that is still to be done really to empower rural India to come to the same level as some of us who are fortunate are here. So giving that introduction, let me come back to the point of the energy as one of the major driving force for any economic development, okay? Be it India, be it Africa, be it America or any other country, unless until there is enough energy supply to do its economic activities, no country can grow. Agree with that? You all agree with that? There has to be enough energy supply, otherwise you can't do anything. You can't do any economic activities. You can't go from one point to other point. You cannot run your machines. You cannot run your water pumps. So energy is one of the key driving force, and which we know that, I don't know what is the situation in Kerala, but we know that in many states of the country, the power situation is very bad, and many people get only power for few hours a day, if at all they get the power. So let us look at that. I've given some numbers here. So if you look at the electricity generation capacity of India as a whole, we have something like 145,000. This number is little old. Now we are having about 160,000 megawatts of total power plant capacity. That includes hydropower, that includes nuclear power, coal power, renewable energy power, everything. Everything put together, we are having about, as of today, 160,000 megawatts of power. Now that is, we know it's not sufficient, because if you look at the world average of energy consumption, right, what is the unit of electricity that you pay for? Unit of electricity, that kilowatt hour, okay, kilowatt hour is what we pay our bills for. So if you look at the average world consumption in terms of kilowatt hour, it is about 2,000 kilowatt hour per capita per year. That is what average standard is. In India, we have the per capita consumption only about 650 kilowatt hour. So there is a huge gap. So suppose you need to supply each citizen a 2,000 kilowatt hour of energy per year, then 150,000 megawatt is not sufficient at all. What we need is much higher number, about 600,000 megawatt. Okay, so four times the capacity that we have right now is required. Otherwise, we cannot actually reach that level. So if you look at the rural electrification numbers, and I have taken this number from Ministry of Power, that there are 590,000 odd villages that we have, and there are according to the Ministry of Power, 439,000 villages are electrified. So there are still 110,000 villages which are not electrified, where absolutely no wire has gone to that village even now. Those villages which are electrified will have only 74% household where there is electricity connection. And those 74% household do not get 24-hour power. Do not get 24 power. So the access is very, very poor. And in terms of household, if you look, only 44% household in the rural India is actually connected with the grid, and they do not get the power all the time. So one alternative solution that I am working on, and that I have done my PhD on solar cell technology development, and now even India is gearing towards setting up large number of solar power plants. I don't know if you heard of what is something called Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission. Anybody heard of that mission? Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission. Prime Minister of India has set up 8 major plans to mitigate the climate change. You know, climate change, I'm sure everybody heard of, right? So there are 8 plans to mitigate the climate change, and one of the plan is National Solar Mission. Within the National Solar Mission, we target to set up 20,000 megawatts of solar power in the country by 2022. Now this 20,000 megawatts of solar power is a very huge number, very big number. But there is enough potential, there is enough resource, there is enough sunlight always in India, so that even if you put about 100 kilometer by 100 kilometer grid of solar panels, then the energy that you will generate will be more than sufficient to supply all electricity needs of the country. Okay, what you need is 100 kilometer by 100 kilometer. And we are fortunate to have a very big country with us, so therefore the area is never a constraint. So there is a large number of efforts are going on to meet the power requirement of India. You can actually go for solar energy, and that is what is my area, that is what we are working. So in the worldwide also there is a large number of development happening in solar photovoltaic technology. Germany is a very small country. It's only like few hundred kilometer by few hundred kilometer. But the power produced in Germany using solar photovoltaic technology is very large. Germany is one of the largest consumer of solar photovoltaic technology. And there are many such countries which are actually promoting the growth of solar photovoltaic technology. And the worldwide production has now gone over 10 gigawatt per year, 10,000 megawatts per year. So which is a very significant growth, and the industry is growing with 40-50% every year. So in India, as I said, Prime Minister has announced what is called Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission, and it is important to know this because significant part of the tax that people are paying or revenue that are coming will go to this particular mission. To give a number, we are going to invest about 92,000 crore rupees in this particular mission to set up those 20,000 megawatts. And together with that, of course, the idea is to generate a lot of power, lot of jobs will be created because large number of manpower is required. In fact, today's world there is really a shortage of engineers who understand solar photovoltaic and who can actually work with solar photovoltaic technology. So if any of you are looking for a good future, a bright future, I would recommend you come to the field of solar photovoltaics. At IIT Bombay, we are setting what is called National Center for Photovoltaic Research and Education. And as the name suggests, as a part of the center, we are going to work on the research aspect of the solar photovoltaic technology, but also large number of education part that we are doing. So we are conducting large number of short-term courses, 3 to 5 days courses. In fact, one such course is going right now in IIT Bombay. What we are also trying to do is create solar photovoltaic based courses and make them available in a public domain for free. So I don't know if you've seen any of you, if you go to the YouTube and if you type my name, I hope everybody knows my name now. If you don't know, my name is Chetan Singh Solanki. So if you type my name in Google, in YouTube, you'll find all my lectures on solar photovoltaic in the form of video. And IIT Bombay is doing a lot of efforts to make all these engineering courses available to public across the country, and you can find many other engineering courses as well. And some of you, if you are interested, you can go and look at those courses. So using the technology, we can, first thing we are trying to do is empowering the urban people itself. And of course, we can use similar technology to empower rural area. Okay, fine. So this is just a very, very brief overview of energy scenario that our country is in right now. And as I showed that we require really huge amount of power to be generated. And the fossil fuel based sources like coal alone, or diesel alone, petrol alone, or CNG alone cannot provide us the solution in a sustainable manner, and therefore we have to look for the alternative solution. Coming back to our theme of empowering rural India, what we have done is, out of my personal interest, what we have done is to make use of solar energy in rural India, particularly make use of solar lantern for the evening education in many parts of the country. Okay, so I'll briefly run through the how we can use solar lanterns, which is a very simple device. It contains a solar PV module, it contains a battery, it contains a charge controller, and it contains a CFL. Okay, so what we have done is we have replaced this kind of education where children were studying under the kerosene lamp in a very remote area where there's no power, and we replaced with a solar lamp, and we have got very good results with that. So we have started that New Energy Foundation for that, and the idea of New Energy Foundation is to promote renewable energy. And I'm coming to energy again because energy is one of the key driver for the growth of a rural area, right? Without access to energy, you cannot really grow the rural area. We also, I have written a book on renewable energy technology, which has been translated in Hindi. So it's written in a very simple, basic language. So anybody who has little interest in energy can actually access the book and read through. This book has also got the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy award for the Hindi writing. In general, in education in India, one good thing about our population right now, I don't know if you have already heard about this, are that we are about, if you look at the people who are below the age of 25 years, like you, there are about 400 to 500 million population of rural, in general India, which is below 25-year age. Which means, as a large, India is a very young country. Which also means there are many people who can contribute in terms of the work, who can contribute in terms of the growth, we can contribute in terms of generating resources rather than consuming resources. And therefore, a very fast growth like 8%, 9% or even 10% is possible in a country like us in India. You cannot expect similar growth in European countries because a lot of their population is now very old. For every one, it was a very astonishing figure that I came across, that for every one person who is working in Europe, there are something like 4 to 5 people dependent on him. What does it mean? There are more people who are dependent than the people who are working. And therefore the load on those people who are working is much more, and therefore they can never grow with the growth rate our India is growing. So that is very good. Okay? In India, we have number of people dependent on per adult is only 0.9. So basically means we are more people to work, more people to contribute to the growth of India, and which is very good. But one precaution has to be taken care. And that precaution is precisely what is your theme of Conjura, that you need to empower those people to contribute to the growth. If you are not going to do that, or if you are going to fail in empowering rural India, all this population, which is very young right now, will become a burden after 30-40 years, okay, without contributing anything in the economic growth. And I'm sure nobody wants that situation, right? We want that our people should also contribute, everybody should contribute to the growth of the country, and that is only possible by empowering rural India. And as I told you, we need to empower in terms of the education, we need to empower in terms of the infrastructure, we need to empower in terms of the better health facilities and so on. And some of them we'll discuss again and again. So India is a very young country, and we have very good opportunity to cash on, provided our people are contributing, each of one of us contributing. And in all of this, education is the key bottleneck. Okay, in all of this, education is the key bottleneck, and I'll come back to that again. So we have given the solar lantern for evening education. And why evening education? Because many people, many farmers, they work in their field, and their children actually take care of their siblings at home, or they also, parents take their children to the farm, and therefore they do not get opportunity to go to school. Other reason could be there is no school. As I told, there are like about 25% villages, there is absolutely no primary school right now. So there's no school, so that they don't get opportunity to go. And therefore there are some organizations which runs schools in the evening, or evening schools. But because these villages are so remote and far off from the main cities or main town, then there is no wire connection, there is no power connection, or even if there is a power connection, there is no power. And therefore, when the school runs in the evening, there is they have to rely on sources like kerosene lamp. Okay, so they have to burn the lamp and then run the school. I'll come to that too again. It has also been shown that there is a very strong dependence of what is called Human Development Index and education. And there is also very strong dependence of Human Development Index and energy consumption. So as I said, right now, per capita energy consumption of India is only 650 units of electricity, while the world average is 2000. And therefore, we need to increase our energy consumption. Of course, not by burning more coal or more more conventional fuels, but we have to be also careful about the environmental aspect, and therefore, focus should be given to more renewable energy. So India is somewhere here. So our Human Development Index is only about 0.5, while the developed country will have the index in the range about 0.8, 0.9. So there is again, we need to increase, and education and energy, both of them can play a very important role in that. As I also told you that there's also strong connection between education or illiteracy in the energy consumption. So in this graph, what I've shown here is that on the y-axis you have the illiteracy rate. So the countries wherever there is a low per capita energy consumption, which is this case, illiteracy is higher. So whenever you increase your energy consumption, your illiteracy goes down automatically. So that has already been observed, and this is the data from the United Nations Development Program. What you can also see from this graph is that the areas which are dark or which are gray are the ones which consume a lot of energy, and area which are light, like you can see here, the Africa, the South America, the India, and this part of the country, the energy consumption is low, which means there's a whole world, there's a whole lot of world which will actually have to increase its energy consumption by one way or other, and then only the development is possible. And of course, there are various ways other than the generation of burning of coal and burning of the gas to generate the electricity, and our government is trying to take care or put some efforts in terms of the nuclear energy, renewable energy again in the form of solar energy, wind energy, biomass energy, hydro energy, wave energy, ocean thermal, solar photovoltaics. And there are so many different forms of energy that can be used which are other than the solar coal-based energy. And as I said, India has a very good potential for solar energy. We receive almost 4 to 7 kilowatt hour, that is 4 to 7 equivalent of unit of electricity per meter square. And as I said, if you only cover 100 by 100 kilometer square area, then that energy generated will always be sufficient to supply the energy to the whole country. So the potential wise, there is enough always. So this is a school where we have this kind of schools where we have given solar lantern. So as you can see that without the access to the power, without the access to electricity, they were studying under the kerosene lamp. And then we have actually brought this kind of solar lamp, which is charged during the daytime. It uses sunlight. The battery gets charged during the daytime, and in the night time, the electricity stored in the battery is used for lighting this kind of lamp. And we have tried various options because the student I will show you will be sitting in the various configurations. So some of the students are sitting in a circle, and it's a very remote area. So there is even no school. So many times the students were actually studying under the tree, or they will study under one of the hut. So there's no proper arrangement to even put a solar lantern. So therefore we have tried many kind of configurations in which you can install a solar lantern in a given school. So each solar lamp can give sufficient lighting for something like 200 to 300 square feet of area. So therefore many students can study. And this program was then done successfully. Many teachers got very happy. Many teachers who otherwise were not running the school started running the school. Many parents came forward and started sending their children to the schools. So we got very good feedback. We have given something like 600 lanterns, which are now are being used by something like 16,000 students across 7 states in the country. So I will not go into the details of this, where we have done this. But you can see some of the images how the solar lanterns is being used for the evening education. What I'll show you is one video. I don't know if the sound will be available. was working, but no problem. The video was about how the solar lanterns are being used for evening education. But let me go back to the next topic, which is about the quality of education in rural area. So what I have done is we started another organization called Education Park, and I'll talk more about it, what it is. But within this organization, we have taken initiative for providing high quality but affordable education in rural India. So the mission of the Education Park is the quality, whatever education you provide should be good. And again, Kerala is a good example of a good primary education system. But if you go to other states, even the primary education is in a not so good shape. And many of the government programs to run the primary schooling is not being kind of handled successfully. And therefore, the quality of the primary education is not so good. So the concept of Education Park was that there are so many non-government organizations in the country, and there are so many organizations which are running the education-related programs. But what we realized that, and I have been doing this kind of efforts towards improving the education in rural area. What I have realized in last 10 years of my work is that we couldn't count a single child whose life is changed because of the education. And the reason being that the education that we provide through the non-government organization, and the reason being that if you really want to train a child, or you really want to give proper education to a child, you require long efforts. Okay, it's only 1 year of effort or 2 years of effort is not sufficient. You have to really provide the support to the child till he really come to the schooling or finishes schooling. Second thing is, whatever quality of education that you are providing has to be also of good quality. Because eventually what happens, if you really want to empower the rural children, when it comes to the competitiveness at the higher education level, or when it comes to the jobs at higher education level, or even when it comes to the doing business, eventually the kids from the rural area will have to compete with the students from the urban area. And therefore, their competitiveness, their skills, their preparation, their exposure to the technology, everything has to be as good as exposure urban child get. And therefore, the cost of education is always an issue, especially in the rural area. And as I said, we have started this organization, so I'll skip this. So the whole objective of the Education Park is to provide a life-changing education, so that once a student gets into the Education Park, once he gets out of the Education Park, he should be equally competitive with any other student in the country, so that he can compete, and that would really be empowering a rural India to take their own charge. So it's a non-profit organization. We started in 2009. Why we need to start this? I'll give some status or some data from the status of the education and the quality of education. So I have taken one example of the district in Madhya Pradesh where we established this. So this is a Khargone district. Khargone district has something like 2,600 primary schools, 721 middle schools, 73 high schools. So per primary school, you can see only 2.6% high schools are there. Higher secondary schools are there, which is, of course, if you imagine that every child is studying and going from primary to middle to higher secondary, there is not sufficient facilities available to take all the children to the higher education. Similarly, if you look at the graduate level in Khargone district, there are only 2.8% or 3.8% students who eventually go to the graduate level. And the survey has been done that all over the country, out of whatever graduate, we average in India, we produce 2.5 million graduates every year. Out of those 2.5 million graduates, only 10% graduates from the arts and commerce background are globally competitive. 90% are not competitive. So it really tells about the quality of education that happens. Similarly, we produce something like 250,000 engineers every year. Out of those 250,000 engineers, only 25% engineers are globally competitive, which again tells a lot about the quality of education. So imagine this is happening at the college level and at the university level. Imagine what is happening at the school level in a remote areas, in a rural areas. So you can imagine the situation is even worse. And therefore, quality is very, very important to bring if we really want those, if you really want to empower the rural area, the quality of education has to be high. And there are many such districts in the country, so I have taken only one odd example. And therefore, what we decided, it is very important that you provide quality education, but at the same time, it is also be affordable. Because if you can make a very expensive schooling, and if it is not affordable by rural people, then it is of no use. Also, because now the whole economy, the world economy is dependent on the access to the knowledge, not so much access to the resource. Or some actually economists says that the wealth of a country or the wealth of a people, a wealth of a country is now so much dependent on the access to the knowledge rather than access to the resources. So because the whole economy all over the world is becoming a knowledge-based economy, it is again very important that all our citizens, all those 65% citizens who are a rural population are to be knowledge-based or should be educated so that they can contribute. Otherwise, as I said, one day they are going to become a burden for the whole country in 30-40 years down the line. So also what happens in our country is a child born poor is guaranteed to remain poor, because for this poor child who is from the rural area do not have any opportunity because his education quality is very poor. He does not have money to start a business, or he does not have other opportunities to get out of it. So once he is poor, there is a full guarantee that he remains poor. And again, it is the job of all of us to empower them so that they also contribute to the growth of the country. So one aspect of the rural empowerment is, of course, the education. But education alone cannot solve all the problems. Why? Because we also, to do any economic activities, we do require energy as an input, right? Without energy as an input, you cannot do a lot of economic activities. So even if village area is a farming based, you require a lot of power to do the agriculture. You need power to give to light the homes and so on. So the energy is one of the key important the input parameters that village economy require. And third, an important thing is the financial power itself. So it is not only the education that can solve it, but a combination of education, energy, and economy put together would actually create those kind of solutions. And once we have those in place, I'm sure we'll have the better income generation, we'll have the better environment, better health, and the better environment, and that should eventually lead to the prosperous society. So in Madhya Pradesh, the condition of energy as compared to India and developed countries is like 300 units per capita per year, which is way below the Indian energy consumption and much way below the developed countries. And same thing is true for the economy and as well as the education. So Education Park, we decided to focus on all these three aspects of putting or working towards improving education, improving economy, and improving energy situation. So how we are going to do that? So in terms of energy, we are going to train large number of manpower in solar energy. As I told you the number earlier, that we have really shortage of the power, and solar energy is the only power which is easily available right now. But it requires trained manpower, it requires money to kind of create those kind of system. But all those knowledge is available. As I showed in the last presentation, that yes, we need solar light or the lighting for the schooling in the evening, but the solution exists right now, right? In the form of solar technology, solution exists right now, but somebody needs to do that there. In terms of economy, of course, we need to educate our people. We need to give a lot of vocational trainings, and that is what is being planned at Education Park. So therefore, the idea or the vision of Education Park is to develop rural youth into a position from where they can play a leading role in their own economic or socio-economic development. Okay, so it's a rural youth which is again farming a huge portion of our population, should be equipped themselves, should be empowered themselves so that they themselves can contribute towards the development of their own area. And it requires high quality of education, it requires high quality of training of the manpower in rural India. So one education park that we have set up at a place called Bhikan Gaon, which is in the Khargone district of Madhya Pradesh. And our intention to develop or set up several such education park across many places so that the rural community can be empowered. Now, one problem when you go to the rural area is the access to energy, as I always said, and you be aware. So therefore, what we decided that to use some kind of technologies to minimize the energy consumption of the building. Okay, so you look at the building; it requires energy for lighting purpose, it requires energy for fan purpose, it requires energy for running the computers and so on. So we have from the beginning taken enough precautions to design our building appropriately, or what is called solar passive architecture. The solar passive architecture is a concept in which you can use solar energy as much as possible or avoid solar energy hitting your roof and therefore increasing the temperature. So if you design your building appropriately, your energy requirement can be reduced by 30 to 40%, and that we have done successfully and achieved it. So we have used the technology to take care of what is the climate of the local area, what is the function of the building, who is going to use the building, what time of the day the building is going to be used, and all those parameters. We have taken care of the microclimate of the area. So we have taken care of the humidity level, we have taken care of the temperature levels throughout the year. We have taken care of the what time of the day. So this chart here is actually shows which time of the day and which day of the month is more uncomfortable. And can you design your building to eliminate that or to increase the comfortness during those months. So that has been taken care. And then we have looked at the various technologies that can play important role in that kind of thing. So for example, one important criteria is to reduce the heat gained by the building, okay, to increase the ventilation in the building, to increase the natural day lighting in the building, and things like that. So which technology can be adopted and how much reduction in the energy it will give. So that is the initial plot of the building, of the area. We have taken care of the motion of the sun. So as you can see from this chart, I don't know it's very clear to you or not, but this is how the sun moves during the winter season in that area. This is how the sun moves during the summer season. And in between paths are there for the mid-season. This is the way the wind will blow in the summer. This is the way the wind will blow in the winter. So therefore, all these precautions about the direction of the motion of the sun, the direction of the wind flow is taken care so that we can minimize the energy consumption. We also done the simulation, computer modeling of the classrooms, so that in no time of the day and any day of the year, we should require any lighting to be used. And therefore the sizing of the window, this is the design of course. We have also taken the design, other design where in consumption in the building, because cement making itself takes a lot of energy. Why should we minimize the steel making? Because steel making itself takes a lot of energy. Okay? So that itself is a big energy load for the country. So if you can minimize the use of cement, if you can minimize the use of concrete and steel, you are actually doing great favor to the nation because you are saving those much energy. We couldn't implement this building because of it has to be earthquake proven building. We also wrote the research paper on the building design, which you can access sometime. And so because that area was in the rural area, we have decided from the day one, the building should not be connected to the grid. And all the energy that is required in the building should be generated within the building. And we generate a lot of those energy. So our building is actually no grid electricity. It's a zero energy building. Okay, there's absolutely no energy connection or electricity connection taken to the building. So all our energy requirement is being fulfilled from the solar energy. So this is how the campus is here, and I'll show some of the pictures. This is how we started. It was completely a barren land. There was absolutely nothing. And then we started with our ritual, initial puja, interaction with the village people. We did the fencing, we did the arrangement for the water. Then we actually plant more than 1,000 trees. All of them are growing right now. We did the rainwater harvesting. So water is one of the key challenges, as I shown in one of my first slide. So we need to save the water as much as possible, wherever it is possible. So we started doing the same thing at the education park. We, of course, released the brochure, which again talks about energy, education, and economy, putting those three aspects together. And then we started the construction. This is the filler slab. where we filled the bricks, slab with the bricks. In fact, I think, I don't know if you heard, in Kerala there are a lot of such construction exist. There is a famous architect, I don't know if you know anybody. Laurie Baker. Laurie Baker is one of the famous architects who spent a lot of time in Kerala and has done a lot of such zero energy constructions. So this is how it looks from inside. So various images. So this is the building when it was ready, and this is how it looks. So you can see the solar panels on the top of the building. So most of the energy, all of the energy that is generated required is actually fulfilled by this solar, and we have the other features where the energy requirement is minimum. So this is how it looks from the side. This is how it looks in the middle. And now the school is running various activities taken. We are actually providing a lot of scholarships to the school, to the people who cannot otherwise afford the education. And we have planted more than 1,000 trees in the school. Music activities, sports activities. So all other activities that is required. Now we are also interacting with the village people, because it's not only education, but the economic development is important, and therefore interaction with the rural people are important. So there are like our resource person who are PhDs in the field of agriculture, in the field of cotton and wheat. They are interacting with the people in the village. And of course, a lot of new construction is happening. I will not go into the detail. So we are making the solar energy training center. We are making the farmers training center. And the new construction is on its way. But as you can see, still there's a long way to go. The whole ideal plan of education park is to have the primary school to higher secondary school to have the village farmers training center, solar energy training center, and that is on its way. So that brings me to the point where we started, empowering rural India. Do we need innovation or the motivation? And I told you that, okay, I'm not going to take the question that time, answer that time, but now I think you should be able to answer, do we really need innovation or we need motivation? Okay, I have been told that this talk is going to be interactive. So far it has not, so let us start interaction now. Are there any mics in the public audience? Are there any mics? Okay, great. So who would like to answer this question? Do we need innovation or do we need motivation? So whatever technologies I have shown, for example, use of solar lanterns, use of solar passive architecture, use of solar panels to generate electricity, is all exists. All this technology exists on the earth. Solar PV technologies exist from 1970, 1980s. Solar lanterns people are using from last 20, 30 years. Okay, a lot of concept of rainwater harvesting exists, right? Centuries old ideas. So there is nothing new as such that we have done in these efforts of New Energy Foundation and Education Park. But what we have done is, we have felt that there is a need, and there is indeed a need, and we must be cautious. I must caution you again that almost 500 million people are young in rural India today. They can contribute to the growth of the nation if they are empowered. If they are not empowered, they will certainly become the burden on the country 30, 40 years down the line. There will be some other people who will be working for them because they will be so old, they will not be able to contribute to the growth of the nation. And therefore, we will be in a really dangerous situation, if I can use the word dangerous. We will really be in a dangerous situation. So, it is our duty to empower India. And what I have shown here is, we don't have to really innovate anything. There's already enough technology exists. There's already enough technologies for power, technologies for education, technology for information communication, technologies for computers, technology for rainwater harvesting, technologies for creating more food security do exist today, even as of today. What is required is motivation, but I still need to hear from you. What do you think? What do we require? It's innovation or motivation? Anybody? No? Should I start my talk again from the slide 1? No, it's already boring enough to hear it again. But then please interact. That is important. Anybody? 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 No? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's motivation that we need.
I can't hear. Can you be little?
Actually, it's motivation that we need. Yeah, you showed us a lot of reasons to be motivated. Also, uh, yeah, you showed a lot of technologies that already we have in our country to develop these rural people. So there's nothing to be innovated, and I think it's to be motivated. And there's a lot of many reasons that we should be motivated to help these people to come to the front and to empower this.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing properly. If you can be closer. Can everybody hear? No, it is very important to interact with each other, right? It's not only between him and me. So everybody should hear and respond. Yeah.
So actually what I said is, you showed us a lot of reasons for us to be motivated to empower the rural India. And also, there's a lot of technologies that you showed from this education park and other things that that help people to empower, to develop the rural areas of India. And so there's nothing to be innovated more. Yeah, maybe we can innovate, but there should be a motivation from our side to help these people to come to the front.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
That's a question beyond doubt that what we need is motivation. As my friend said, we already have the technology and the resources, and we have young minds here, and I'm standing around young minds which can bring up new innovations far more better than the existing ones. So what we require is motivation. Of course, that's a real answer, and that picture that's now on the screen itself, that's a clear idea. We are already on the swing now. We need a push. That's what we need. So we need a motivation. We need to be motivated to what? Use green resources like you said. And that education park, that's a really good idea. Hats off, sir. And sir, I would like to ask a question also.
Sure.
Sir, according to recent reports, India is 9th on the solar photovoltaic cell production. I mean 7th. And 9th on the solar thermal units. Whereas Japan, China and US, they're all ranked further up ahead. So would you say India has the potential to set her foot into a brighter future as the name suggests?
Okay, so first of all, let me thank both of you for giving your opinions. Yes, there's already a lot of innovation do exist, and it is just, I think, question of motivation. Of course, when we work, there is a lot of new innovations will also come. But we cannot wait for innovations to happen, right? We have to start working and doing something, innovations will happen. But it is a motivation that is the main thing which is required right now. So thank you very much for your comments and sharing your views with all of us. Now coming back to your question, if I understand correctly, because there is some, so what you are asking is why India, where there is a lot of potential for the solar power, is still behind the Japan and other countries, is that right? So let me tell you that when I started doing my PhD in solar photovoltaic, that is way back in 1999, when I thought I should do something which is like more relevant to society, so got into the solar photovoltaic. That time the cost of solar photovoltaic module, okay, when you say cost, we say cost per unit watt, okay? So that time the cost of solar photovoltaic module was something like $10 per watt. Okay, $10 is like 450 rupees per watt. Now 450 rupees per watt, and you know what is the cost of coal-based power plant? Okay, let me give the numbers. Cost of the coal-based power plant is something like 5 to 6 crores per megawatt, which means 5 to 6 rupees, which means 50 to 60 rupees per watt. Okay. You know what is the cost of nuclear power plant? Something like 8 to 10 crores per megawatt, which means about 180 rupees, 70, 80 rupees kind of per watt. Similarly, the cost of gas-based power plant is in the range of 5 to 6 megawatt per crore. Cost of wind-based power plant is in the similar range. So therefore, whenever we talk about solar power plant, one of the main inhibiting parameter is the cost of the power plant. Okay. So from the day when I started PhD till today, there are a lot of changes that has happened in the technology. And one major change is that the cost which was there at $10 per watt has come down to about $2.5 to $3 per watt. Okay, that's a very significant change, and being in the solar photovoltaic field and doing research myself, I feel very happy about these numbers. But it's still not enough, right? We know that 100 rupees, 120 rupees per watt of solar cost of the solar PV module is still very high. And again, we need people like you to take part in the research, take part in the policy, take part in the development, and bring down that cost further to the range of 40-50 rupees per watt when it becomes competitive with the coal-based power plant. And when it becomes competitive with the coal-based power plant, India would automatically adopt, or not India, the whole people would automatically adopt the solar power. And in general, any technology requires some kind of push from the government, be it a nuclear, be it a coal-based, be it a hydro, right? You look at the history, no technology would have come to the main utilization without government support. Look at how much support is given to the nuclear power, right? If you're reading newspaper, there's that talk about 1, 2, 3 TT between US and India and importing the fuel, all this is going on. Coal-based power plant generation technologies like 100, 200 years back, and of course government has put a lot of money into those before it has come to this level. In all hydro-based power plant, government puts a lot of money before we can generate the electricity, right? So no technology can come to the main front without the government support, and similarly solar power requires government support. And as I said, National Solar Mission, the government has announced 2009, does provide that kind of support. Now only thing is that support has come in 2009 only, not previous to that, because it was too expensive, but it's better that you started now. So we can see in the country, and I can see in the country, that there are lots of activities happening, lots of conferences are happening on solar power, and I'm sure within 2-3 years you'll hear big numbers about solar power happening in India. So that's why I'm saying again that yes, technology already exists. It is a motivation to use the technology for whatever application you want to. You want to use that small power for your watches and calculators, you can use that. You can use that power for running your fans and light, you can do that. You can use that power to run the whole Kerala on solar power, you can do that. So there's absolutely no shortage of any potential or any technology. It is a matter of the cost and the matter of the time before which the solar technology will become available everywhere. Okay, fine. Any other comments? Any other comments? I'm not very hungry right now, so we can go on for another 20-30 minutes.
Sir, I have a question. Land is a limited resource in Kerala which is required for the solar power generation because of its high population density. So would you suggest some solution to overcome this problem?
Yeah. So Kerala, there is a land scarcity, so can there be a solution for that? But if you do the numbers, and I suggest if you get opportunity to read my book, which is very simple, anybody can do that, renewable energy technology book. There's a very small chapter on solar photovoltaic technology which gives how to do the calculation. Okay, so if you do the number calculation, there's enough area in Kerala. You really don't require. So for example, if you cover this roof, I think you will generate something like 10-20 kilowatts of solar power, which will give something like 100 units of electricity every day. That's large amount of power, isn't it? That's large amount of electricity. So yes, I mean, you may not have the continuous land, but you can use the distributed land. And what else? You can use the sea itself. So now there are people who are floating the modules on the sea. Huge area available, right? So you can float your module in the sea, and that can still generate power. So I don't think area has a restriction. I mean, in one particular situation, like a big building and a mall can have the area restriction, but otherwise in general, I don't think there is a problem with the area. Okay? Any other? Coming back to the motivation, innovation.
Good afternoon, sir. I would like to ask my question. Do you have any suggestions that would encourage people to look on to renewable energy sources other than conventional ones?
Do I have any suggestion to encourage people to use renewable energy sources?
Other than the conventional ones.
Rather than conventional sources, okay. Yeah. One simple language that people understand is money. Agree with me? So what I mean that today the coal-based electricity is available to you at 5 rupees per unit. How much you pay at home in Kerala? What is the unit cost of electricity? 4 to 5 rupees. Okay. We also know that the prices of diesel is going up, prices of petrol is going up. Similarly, one day the price of coal will also go up, and eventually the cost of the coal-based electricity will be so high that people will automatically have to choose solar energy. That is for the later case. But if you really become aware of the environment, the kind of changes that is happening in the environment, the kind of catastrophe that is happening, and if you become aware of that, if you become aware that every unit of electricity or unit of energy consumed which is there in the coal, only 1/6 or 1/5 of that is being actually utilized here. To give an example, if the fan is using 1 unit of electricity here, that is 1 kilowatt hour, the actual coal you are burning is how much? 5 kilowatt hour equivalent. That is ridiculous, and this is nonsense if you look at the numbers, right? You are using or you are burning or producing smoke somewhere 5 times more than what you are consuming. Why 5 times more? Because your coal-based power plants are only 35% efficient. Okay? Then you run your turbines, then you run your generator. Your generator is only 90% efficient. Then you transmit, okay, and the wires. There is already 15 to 20% transmission and distribution losses in the base case in India. In the worst case, the transmission and distribution losses are as high as 50-60%. Fine. Then eventually you are consuming here. So the kind of energy that you are wasting is 5 times more than what you are consuming. So when you become aware of that fact, then people will automatically should switch to the renewable energy. And considering that there's a lot of support available from the government, I don't know if you are aware of this or not. If your solar energy system is costing 60,000 rupees, right now there is a scheme from the government which does not require a lot of paperwork. Okay, so normally government say means a lot of paperwork. It does not require a lot of paperwork. You have to only put 12,000 rupees. Other something like 15,000-16,000 comes as a capital subsidy from the government, and the rest you can actually take as a loan as a 5% interest. So a lot of this awareness has to be brought into the public that yes, there is a solar energy technology, yes, there is a biomass energy technology, yes, the cost is already lower, yes, there is already government subsidies are available. So this awareness has to be brought to the public, and the subsidies are actually given by the banks. And what we realize that many times even banks are not aware that they have duty to do this. Banks are not aware that they have duty to do this. So young people like you can actually take as a challenge and make or create that knowledge, bring awareness to the society and including the banks and other government authorities and use it. It's already available at the level where it is economically viable even today for many applications. And more so it really makes sense for using solar energy in the rural area, where bringing all the wires and transmitting the power from 500 kilometers and losing 20-30% energy in the transmission and distribution losses, it is better to generate power where it is required. So if you require power here for the fan, I should generate at top of this roof, not where is the power coming here? Anybody has any idea? Where is the power coming here? This power? Where is the nearest power plant? So it must be some few 100 kilometers away from here. In 60 kilometers, but there must be area. So power is coming from 60 kilometers. Putting the line for 60 kilometers and losses is too much. But you can generate on the top here itself. So those kind of awareness are to be brought to the public in general, and I'm sure that the solar energy is already up to a level where it can start being utilized by the people. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Now I request Mr. Deepak G. Skaria, final year student, Computer Science and Engineering Department, to extend the word of thanks.
Honorable Chief Guest Dr. Chetan sir, Dr. Udaykumar sir, our most valued invited guest, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose the word of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of the Conjugal event team, the TKM family, and on my own behalf, extend a hearty thanks to the august gathering here. So first of all, I want to say a big thank you to Dr. Chetan for taking the pain to travel close to 850 miles from Mumbai and reach Kollam to attend the Contra 11. And thank you for giving us an inspiring talk, which I am sure would have inspired many of you to take up the cause of rural India in the future. And this shows his dedication to the cause he believes in. As Mahatma Gandhi said, India lives in its villages. And from this speech, I'm sure many of you would be encouraged to take up the cause of the rural India. As he pointed out, it's important that young engineers should join politics, because you can always blame the system, but the fact that you should realize is that you are actually the part of the system, and it's your responsibility to take up the cause of the nation, and you just can't keep on blaming the politician when you yourself are not taking any action for that. Next, I would like to extend my deep sense of gratitude to Dr. Uday Kumar for the kind-hearted support that he has extended to the organization of this talk. Sir, I am sure this will truly inspire us to organize more events of the kind in the future. Next, I extend my thanks to the staff, management, principal of TKMC Kollam for providing us this wonderful opportunity to organize this event. I would also take this opportunity to thank the technical committee and light and sounds committee and the transportation committee for organizing this event on time and successfully. Finally, I would like to thank all of you for being a wonderful audience and for all those wonderful queries that you raised to the guest. I would like to conclude by thanking the Almighty for this wonderful ambience and the wonderful weather which makes this event more beautiful. Once again, thank you all of you.
Thank you, Deepak. This function is declared over. Thank you all.